blocking the streets. Hi.
Hello. Hello. Okay.
So, I was hoping to get from you, like, why we're here today. Why are we celebrating, you know, this samba and having people with tripods and something?
Okay, so Tufton Street, you could say is home to the Global Warming Policy Foundation, which is like one of the bases of climate denial. So we need to come here today to say this is the place, this is where basically the whole of civilization, you could say, is being threatened by people.
Hi, we are in Tufton Street, which is about a 10-minute walk from Parliament Square.
So behind here, people like Mr. Lawson and his friends and their funders basically put blockers in the way to pushing civilization forward, and as a result they are a threat to civilization. So we're here peacefully to make this point, to say you can't just carry on what you're doing and not be called out. So we're here today to call them out.
Thank you very much. Tell us how today's gone.
I think today has gone pretty successfully. As you can see, you know, especially in Tufton Street, the plans that we've had, you know, have sort of emerged victorious. You know, we've got the people in the tripods, we've got a samba band playing, we've got crowds appearing, crowds emerging, we've got supporters, and even the police. Even the police, you know, they are here, but they don't seem to be doing too much in the way of stopping us, and it's great. We've only had a few minor issues. For example, up there was a bit of water thrown on us by someone who lives in one of the buildings, which is quite negative and quite unexpected, but they just don't understand. That's ignorance, I guess.
Okay, let's go check out the samba band. Stay with me. I'll come to you in a minute. So this is Tufton Street in London. It's about a 10-minute walk away from Parliament Square. The street has been taken with tripod either side. Got the Red Rebels. Such a powerful image. At the moment there are protests planned across London until the 12th of September. This is day 2. Rebellion and a Writers' Rebellion yet to come this evening.
So yeah, the Red Rebels, what an amazing creative spectacle designed to symbolise the creative element of our disobedience. As you can see here, there's a procession of the Red Rebels. We're sort of tailgating them. How are you enjoying the event?
Very good.
Cool. As you can see here, there's another group of creatives. As you can see, very strikingly dressed. What does this symbolise? What are you dressed as?
Our house is on fire!
Your house is on fire.
Our house is on fire!
It's great. Very clear, very clear. Thanks.
Extinction!
Okay, we're about halfway through the crowd now. Still very full, but a little bit less intense with the samba being over there. We've got another tripoder here. How's the event going for you, do you think?
Oh, it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. It's so exciting. This is when I love the rebellion at its very best. The tripods go in, the drums come along, and we take the streets. It's just so exciting.
It is so exciting, isn't it? It's so creative.
It's so creative, but also it's so great to speak truth to power. Because in that building there is the home of all the think tanks that tell the lies. The heart of darkness. That is absolutely the heart of darkness. So we've got the Global Warming Foundation, we've got Civitas, we've got Taxpayers Alliance, we've got so many there, I've got a list there, so I'll get it out in a minute. But I think for us to make this noise, I don't think enough people know in this country what happens in there. You know, and that's where the people who pull the strings of this government work out of. And they're the people who've got all the dark money, and they're the ones who really what we want is just free market economy. They don't want any regulations whatsoever. They want to be left alone so that they can exploit and make as much money as possible without any consideration for anyone else or the planet. And I really don't think enough people in the UK know how this dark money is strangling their democracy. And this is why we need people's assemblies. I'm just going to have to get a drink of water, I'm sorry.
You did great.
Thank you, Anna. That's awesome. We've got a tripod here. These were put up extremely quickly, and they have blocked both ends of this road. This is Tufton Street, and there's events going on here for several hours to go. There's also actions happening in Parliament Square, in Manchester, in Cardiff. This is day 2 of the rebellion.
Yeah, so it's great to see that so many people in XR have just, been awoken to the tyranny of these think tanks. They are climate change deniers, and they paid a lot of money to deny the climate. Change is happening, and you know what? It's time things change. It's time that people woke up, and creating this much noise here in a quiet little uptown enclave here. Very, very, very much paradigm shift. Such a paradigm shift in the way things are done. And these tripods, if anything, they just strengthen our cause because they show that we don't care about the system, we don't care about the laws. At the end of the day, we just care about what's right, and we think that citizen assemblies is needed. Anna said it. Many other members of XR have said it. Citizen assemblies. We cannot cry more and more and more about citizen assemblies. The global policy on climate change. They are criminals, and they are paid more than the majority of people on this planet are paid per year, you know, and it's awful, you know. And the fact that we've got people willing to, you know, lay down their freedom, their sort of liberal freedom, you know, that's really positive to me. Really positive, really positive. Yeah.
Tell us what's been going on today.
So today, this action was, you know, quite hush, so everyone's been in Parliament Square, creating a lot of noise, creating a lot of distractions for, you know, the police, and they went there, you know, and everyone thought, oh, XR, it's flopped, you know, it's, the turnout wasn't that great, oh, you know, and what a shame. But oh no, we have bigger fish to fry, you know, a more specific issue, these climate changes, you know, these climate change think tanks specifically, they just, you know, they're part of the problem, they're the root of the problem, you know, and thanks for watching, guys.
Can you tell us about the climate ecological emergency bill?
A little bit about the climate and ecological emergency bill. It would basically ruin these think tanks. You know, the way they operate is a sort of, you know, the status quo is sort of off balance. It's petered off, you know, so our governments listen to these think tanks when it comes to the science behind climate change and the policy process, you know, they listen to these people, you know, but if we had a citizen assembly, which is what the CEE bill is designed to sort of, you know, instigate, then we wouldn't have this issue, because we'd have people's groups basically campaigning against what they're saying, you know, and proving them wrong. So, yeah, and they're great, and I totally back them.
Right, okay, we're heading down Tufton Street. So it sounds like there might be a rest taking place down there. Thanks for all your messages coming in, that's fantastic for me, and to know that you're watching, so do let me know if there's things like that going on. Trying to make my way through the crowd. Amazing atmosphere here. Rebel perched up high.
Alfie's asking for them back.
So what should I do? Should I just send you...
Just wandering through the crowd, quite difficult to get through because it's really quite packed here. Sorry, thank you. Let's squeeze through. Amazing. Thank you. This is Tufton Street, about 10-minute walk from Parliament Square. end of the street and heading that way. Let's see what they're up to. Animal Rebellion! Just want to know what they're up to. They're going to block the streets or arrest anybody. They seem to be on the move. Oh, they're going away. It's all good. It's fine. Want to talk to Mike? Do you want to say anything to camera? Do you want to shout? Difficult to interview them from here, and it's raining quite heavily on them right now. Thank you! Hope you could hear the rebel from up the tripod.
Yeah, so as you can see, quite an atmosphere, quite enjoyable, quite light. No arrests so far that I'm aware of, which is good, I guess. Over here we've got an interviewee. Where is he? Oh, they're lining up. It's starting to rain, which is both not very nice, but at the same time quite atmospheric, which is quite cool. Can't imagine it's very nice for the people on the tripods, or the police for that matter.
Take place.
We tried to find you an interview, but we couldn't find anyone.
Okay. Heading towards the sandberg, where speeches are about to start. If I can get through the hands.
Welcome, rebels! There is a prophecy in Tibetan Buddhism about the Shambhala warriors, and whenever I hear the samba band playing for us like that, I think about that Shambhala prophecy, and it goes something like this. There comes a time when life is hanging by a thread. Great powers exist with weapons that can destroy millions and technologies that lay waste to the earth. At this time, the Shambhala warriors wake up. They are a people without a feeling of belonging. They roam across the lands of the destructive civilization. They enter the spaces where power is held to dismantle all of the weapons, inner and outer. They know the weapons are mana maya, meaning made by the human mind. Honouring all of the Shambhala warriors, all of the rebels here today, and thanking our fantastic samba band. Thank you. And a special, gorgeous thank you to our tripod warriors. Thank you, sister. Thank you, brother. Very amazing. I do believe one of you jumped up at the last minute, and I especially thank your courage. And also wanting to honour, I don't know where they're at the moment, the lock-on just round the corner. There's a lock-on to protest HS2, the aviation shuttle service, smashing through our ancient woodland. Thank you so much to the HS2 protectors. In an act of true beauty and ingenuity, they have brought an ancient tree that has been felled and used it as a lock-on, and it's actually been double felled around the corner. What a beautiful move inside this sacrifice, both of the tree and of those Shambhala warrior rebels. So thanks again to all the HS2 protectors. It's our Amazon. I heard that the CEE bill, the Climate and Ecological Emergency Bill, is getting its second hearing. On some level, this crisis is less about the ecological and climate emergency and more about the crisis in our democracy. And part of my journey was working with folks that I met through Occupy Democracy, and they happen to be here today, and in the spirit of spontaneity and beauty, I've asked two people and a new friend to join in sharing some words today. So first of all, I'd like to welcome the fabulous campaigner. He took on, was it this morning or yesterday, the editor of the Sun newspaper, was it? What a warrior. My dear friend, I'm going to say your name, but I'm going to say more things. My dear friend, Donica McCarthy, who's been a long-time campaigner for the environment and has such inner resilience and strength and beauty and love to carry on with this struggle. The author of the book called The Prostitute State, and I can't think of many better people to come and tell us, why are we here, Donica McCarthy? Come and tell us.
This is Tufton Street that was taken about an hour ago.
Thank you, everybody, and thank you so much for coming here to the heart of darkness in the British democratic system. Because that's what it is. Tufton Street is the heart of darkness. But first I want to put a shout out to the over 100 rebels who already peacefully protesting against the system that's represented by Tufton Street. So hip hip hip! Hip hip! Hip hip! Having been 9 times arrested for my passion to stop the destruction of climate and ecology, I know what they are sacrificing today, and we really respect them. But I am really thrilled that we are in Tufton Street, because I first became aware of the corruption, and that is, I say that word judiciously, that's at the heart of the British system. When I became elected Deputy Chair of the Liberal Democrats something like 20 years ago, and relies at the top of all our political parties, our political lobbyists and proponents of a think tank system. We think that we live in a democracy, but then we must ask ourselves, why do we need to come and protest and be arrested on the streets of Britain to get the government to do what the people want? We should not have to be here in a democracy if it was a democracy. And it's actually right across the political system. When surveys are taken, everybody across the political system wants action on the climate ecology emergency. 2/3 2/3 of Tories voters want action on the climate. 2/3 of Labour voters want it. More than 2/3 of Green Party and lots of Liberal Democrats. So why do we ask ourselves, is this happening? And the reason is represented by this building. This is how it works. When the billionaire class, that tiny 0.1% who have grabbed control of our democracies across the developed world, when they want a policy taken in Parliament that the people don't want, what they do is the corporations and the billionaires, they go to a think tank. They knock on 55 Tufton Street, or they give them a bell, or they give them a Zoom call, and they say, "Hi, we want to get a huge coal mine built in Cumbria, but the damn Friends of the Earth don't want it. Can you help us? How much do you charge?" "Well, 100,000 for 2 days' work, maybe 500,000 for a half year's work, 2 million for 2 years' work. What will you do for that?" "Oh, we'll produce a report for you." "Okay. And what will that report do?" "It'll tell what a brilliant idea building a huge coal mine in Cumbria is." "And what will you do with that report?" "Oh, we know lots of people, because we've hired people from the BBC, and we've hired people from the Sun, we've hired people from the Times, and we know people at the top of the British media system. And we'll publish that report, and the BBC, the media, the billionaire media, will publish that report as a considered academic study into why coal is a good idea, and they will tell you, and I don't lie, they will tell you opening a huge coal mine in Cumbria is good for climate. True. They have told the media that opening a coal mine, the biggest coal mine in Europe, in the middle of a climate crisis, is good for climate. And the media will report, the media will report it. Then the producers in the BBC will open the papers every morning, because that's what they do. The BBC is supposedly independent. It's funded by you. It's our media. But how it runs is the producers in the BBC come into work in the morning. They open the paper and say, "What stories shall we cover?" So Tufton's got the story into the Sun and the Times. Then the producer in the BBC reads the story, and they say to their producer, "Oh, we must run a story on the news about why opening a huge coal mine is good for climate." And so then the BBC runs the story, the public looks at it, the MPs in Parliament looks at it, and suddenly what happens? The Minister for State gives approval for a coal mine in Cumbria. And that is how the system works. That is why Tufton Street is the heart of darkness. These people, the global war, there's around 9 groups settled here in this area, think tanks, if they want me to go forward. Let's go forward, I think it's a good idea. So that is how the system works. And what we need to do is to challenge it. We went, when lots of you here came with us to protest outside the BBC, at the failure of the BBC to give the due prominence to the urgency of the climate ecological crises. We went there, we protested, nothing happened. We went again, we protested, nothing happened. We went a third time, and this time they opened the door and they gave us a meeting. I said, "I got some water," and my mouth's drying up. So they invited us in, a group of Extinction Rebellion people, and we went to this meeting. Coincidentally, 3 days before our meeting, the Policy Exchange, one of the most corrupt think tanks in the United Kingdom, produced a report telling that the Extinction Rebellion was a crowd of terrorist extremists. That we were actually out to destroy all the government and bring it all down, and actually we had no interest in climate. It was a front for the far, far left. Now there are people from the far, far left in Extinction Rebellion, and they're welcome. And there are people from the centre and the right and the left. However, what that report was intended to do was to smear all of us as being extremists from one particular far left ideology. Who did they hire to write it? Richard Wilson. Who is Richard Wilson? Some of our friends here from the police will know and remember him. He was the cop who was kicked out in disgrace for framing the Stephen Lawrence campaign. He ran a corrupt, behind-the-scenes spying campaign on the family of the victim of the Lawrence murder. A stain on the Metropolitan Police, and I'm sure the officers here would disown. That's who the Tufton Street crowd hired to smear us. And they published that report, and of course all the billionaire media ran the thing. Extinction Rebellion's a crowd of terrorists, extremists. And to their shame, the Today programme ran that story as well, without any right to reply at that moment. And we said to the BBC, that report was funded secretly and anonymously and published by a corrupt policeman. Why did you not tell the public that the funders of that was secret? We don't know what oil corporation, whether it's BP or Shell, hired Tufton Street to smear us, and to smear us in the public, and smear us as terrorists and extremists. And I was shocked. We said that to the BBC, and they said, well, we must cover what the reports of think tanks do. So what we said to them, well, at a minimum, in a transparent democracy, you should only publicise reports that are decently and transparently funded. It is outrageous that an oil company can hire a policeman, use a think tank to smear a democratic, peaceful movement as extremists. Why are you doing this? And they said, well, that's what we must cover the full range of the news. And we said, why don't you, just one thing, don't publicise reports that are secretly funded. And it's extraordinary. From that entire hour-long meeting, the only thing that the senior BBC executive got angry about was at that demand. He said, no way am I going to do this. No way. I was shocked. I was just sitting there. What on earth? What on earth should somebody at the top of the BBC get so angry about for such a simple, transparent demand? And that showed me there's a problem in the BBC because this crowd has infected it. So that's what we're up against. And what the most important thing you can do with corruption is to shine the light of truth in it. And that's why I'm really excited that we have come here today with Gail and all of you fellow rebels. Because this is about getting the word out about how our democracy is being hijacked. The same crowd did Brexit, the same crowd are hijacking our NHS. They're pouring millions and millions of pounds into hiring MPs, hiring ex-MPs to trash our NHS and to sell us out in the negotiations with the trade deal with America. That's why these billionaire class are hiring Tony Abbott, the corrupt Murdoch sponsor XPM of Australia, to represent us in our trade deals. This is why in America how the think tanks work with Murdoch, they get the stuff onto Fox News, from Fox News into Trump, and then it's implemented. This is why our climate is in danger. This is why our nature is in danger. Remember the trees that are falling on the route of HS2. They represent the remnants of the beauty and treasure and richness of our Mother Nature. 83% of nature that was on the planet when humanity started farming and knocking down the trees is left. Sorry, 83 is gone. In my lifetime, I'm 60 years old. 60% of the nature that was on the planet when I was born is gone. And at the rate that this crowd will go, destroying our environmental protections. Because remember, that's what Tony Abbott said in the papers yesterday. We must do trade deals that have paid no attention to that silly environmental nonsense. Murdoch thinks anything to the environment and climate is nonsense. These are the people we've got to take on. We cannot let me die at 90 with 1% of nature left. That's why I'm here. Mother Nature deserves protection, and all of you here agree that. These people are on the other side. We must shine the truth on them. And one thing we must demand as a first step, and that is no more media for secretly punished reports from this corrupt outfit. Thank you so much. Onward and upward.
trouble right now. Would you mind all stepping back a little, taking a little space and showing that we care about each other and we care about the visitors here, as well as caring about the optics of the photographs, which are going to look rubbish. So please, even the samba band, would you mind just giving a little bit of space between everyone? Because we love you guys, we don't want a COVID disaster as a result of today. Thank you very much. Handing over to Gail.
Fergal?
It was a little bit spontaneous to ask Donica to get up and speak. What
do you want me to do? See whether Fergal's
Thank you, Donica. And in terms of the issues in our democracy, we all need a functioning democracy wherever you are on the political spectrum. I met a wonderful man called George Barder in the middle of Parliament Square. We sat up all night under a tarpaulin trying to occupy democracy in 2015 and talking about how we believed we needed a mass civil disobedience movement. And I said to George, well, we need to start one. And it was actually called Compassionate Revolution, and it was one of the precursors to Extinction Rebellion. And here's George just to say a few words in support of the democratic issues that we're facing today. Welcome, George.
I still kind of hope that we're going to end up back on the Compassionate Revolution name, because basically Extinction Rebellion is about a compassionate revolution. You know, we can rebel against the extinction of things, but unless we see a transformation from an insanely competitive system to a basically cooperative one, we have no hope. And of course, even the idea of competition is kind of a joke, because we have so many monopolies that effectively dominate most of the industries, which account for why there is this giant deficit between what most people want, according to opinion polls, and what actually happens in most places. And the good news is that this is not just the UK, that there are what they call super majorities, so over 60 or 70% of people that agree with a whole bunch of things in virtually every single country, including China and Russia, etc. You know, such as that the people at the top have too much power, that the ordinary person doesn't have enough influence over what's going on, that we should prioritise a decent life for our children and a viable future over more profits for corporations and billionaires. But one way or another, it carries on as it does. And places like this are at the heart of that problem. Donica talked about this being the heart of darkness. I had this being the devil's tongue, the propagandist for power. And one of the sort of evil tricks of economic globalization is that money can move without any kind of constraint across the world through the tax havens that we coordinate. And what that means is that billionaires anywhere can fund elections everywhere. And can fund the democratic narrative that people have access to everywhere as well. The kind of basic definition of democracy is rule by the people based on informed consent. If you have a massive architecture of disinformation, effectively it's impossible for people to have that informed consent, therefore it's impossible to have a democracy. And they know that very, very well. I remember reading Noam Chomsky pointing out years ago, and this was a sort of penny dropping moment for me, was that the more formal democracy you have, the more central propaganda becomes to the powerful continuing to get their way. You know, so in this country, the police can't just come and shoot us. I'm sure they don't want to either. You know, many countries, that's what happens to protesters. They disappear and turn up dead in a ditch a few weeks later. What they have to do here is manipulate the ideas that people have so that they go along broadly with what's going on. And as I said before, it's not that people agree with it, but they need to do just enough so that we basically get on with it and keep going to work and keep paying our bills, etc. But as pretty much everyone in this movement realises, this is not just a matter of the long struggle for a juster and fairer world, which has always been a noble one in my view. It is a question of transforming the way the world does business in no time at all, so that we have some chance of a viable future. Many people remember Copenhagen 2009. It was the big climate conference described as the last chance to prevent terrible disaster. What we've had for the last 11 years is escalating terrible disaster. Hundreds of millions of people, especially in other parts of the world, that the media does its job the best it can to stop us seeing, are suffering constant catastrophe. You know, cyclones, famines, droughts, floods, the list goes on. Like the hurricane season in the Caribbean is going to be double the normal hurricane season. There's more fire in the Amazon this year than last year. The crisis is right here and it carries on. The reason the existential crisis is not clear is because people in buildings like this one, funded by billionaires across the world, and especially in this sort of transatlantic dark money network, they fund the story that people get. And I think that, to be slightly philosophical for a second, I think that the root problem here is that we have this idea of sort of rationality, that we all kind of make up our minds freely and have our own ideas. The reality is that we're habitual creatures, we have very flexible, absorbing, adaptable brains, and we can only go on the information that we get, right? So when the average person hears climate change, all they have to go on is the information they've been fed about climate change. So it's not that we're gullible, it's that we're dependent on the information that we have access to. And this is billions and billions of pounds and dollars going into making sure that the most destructive activities ever known on the planet can continue increasing at exponential speed, and it's absolute madness. What I was going to do now, I spend so much of my time on microphones basically quoting George Monbiot one way or another, my much greater namesake, and I'm actually, I think, probably knowing that this action happened. He wrote an article yesterday, it was going to happen, he wrote an article yesterday in The Guardian, so I'm actually going to just read that article because I think it's really important to understand the story behind how we got here, you know, how these fake grassroots organisations. Do people know the term AstroTurf organisation? Does that ring a bell? What these organisations are brilliant at is coordinating groups of people to appear as if they're, you know, coming from the grassroots, just saying what the normal people are saying. And actually, you know, the Taxpayers Alliance is housed here as well. That's one of the best examples of that. Taxpayers Alliance, it sounds like it's on the side of the ordinary person, and it is funded by the same dark billionaires. But of course, we don't know who's funding it exactly, but we know that it's the same network of money. So I'm just going to read George Monbiot's article as something of a homage to this very wonderful man. Oh, he is speaking. Okay, he's going to speak. I'm not going to read his article. He's going to speak from the heart. Cool. Okay. Well, I'll leave it to George. But go to DSmog, by the way. That is one of the best resources to understand what's going on here. They're constantly producing brilliant information. You can see like a map that they've produced of how all these organisations that are dedicated to sort of appearing like separate independent voices in the media are actually all part of the same very, very coordinated network. I'm sure what George is going to tell you about when he comes to the microphone is how the system that first took over the UK and the US. I mean, people might not know this, by the way. There was a very clever game played in both the UK and the US in the early 80s where politicians in the US would stand up and go, there's this great new way of doing things, and they're doing it over in the UK and it's working really well. And at the same time, people in the UK would stand up and say, there's a great new way of doing things, and it's happening in the US, it's working really well. And basically they're working with each other all along. And this system, the neoliberal system, the Thatcherite system, whatever you want to call it, has spread from this country across the world. And what we've effectively seen is a replacement of the colonial system we had for 400 years with a neo-colonial system. So instead of having flags and armies dictating what happens in countries, you have trade deals. And if countries don't sign trade deals, they barely have access to anything in the global economy. And the punishments effectively for not getting involved in the system as it is are enormous for countries that have been impoverished for 400 years. And the last thing I'll say is, whenever you hear the term developing country, bear in mind this is not a question of some countries have developed and some just haven't quite got there yet. The wealth of the powerful and the rich has always been based, and it continues to be based, on the extraction of wealth from elsewhere. $3 trillion of value go from poor countries to rich countries. Next time you hear, like every single year, £3,000 million go from poor countries to rich countries. And it's that lack of power that the 99% of people effectively have, which means that this madness continues, despite all the scientists on the planet knowing it's insane, despite more and more of us knowing that our children will not have a viable future unless we turn it around. The good news is, even for the wealthy on the planet, all the evidence suggests the more we focus on prioritising the needs of people, on social and environmental outcomes, the more everybody has a decent future that they can enjoy. But it has to happen now. Thank you very much.
I think you can all hear the audio okay.
George, I don't think we've got Guido Fawkes here. I think we've got his more slimmer, handsome sidekick here, and welcome to you, brother. So, welcome again, everybody. This day of reading the Climate and Ecological Emergency Bill. Thank you to Caroline Lucas for leading the charge there.
Well, if we can catch people before they go on stage on Friday. Yeah, we should go around the corner. That would be perfect.
We just had an older sister ask me to speak to the women, to speak to the grassroots rising of the feminine, and I was speaking. Thank you. Thank you, sister. Thank you.
Wait, could you get Henry? He could cover this.
The way I know, I have to say, especially the older women. Thank you.
So hold it.
I keep saying this on platforms. I'm not quite post-menopausal, but I hear you really don't give a fuck after the menopause, sisters. So I look forward to that. Well, I think I'm semi there, to be frank. Why are we not acting? Why are we not acting? Why are billions set to die? Thousands dying already? It's a systemic issue, first of all.
Do you want a police officer in it, yeah? No.
A political and economic system that creates crises and doesn't know how to handle them. Knowing that a pandemic was inevitable, it also knows that antibiotic resistance is inevitable. Things aren't in place to deal with these crises. It can't act on them, and it doesn't want to change if it means handing over power, because it's a system of domination, control, extractivism, and corruption. And it's an old system, and it's a system that's in all of us in different ways. We're not separate from that system. I have a brother here. Welcome to XR Jersey, actually. XR Jersey is subject to something called the finance curse, a fantastic book by Nick Shaxson, if anybody's interested in that piece. The City of London has cost us £170,000 each since the 1990s. You won't hear about that because the information that comes out about our finance system, we need finance in my opinion, but it's dominant, it's the cuckoo in the nest. 123 billion is evaded or avoided or unpaid in taxes annually. We have a system based on the madness of the idea of GDP growth, even though the creator of GDP growth, Timon Kuznets, said, please don't use, I'm paraphrasing, please don't use GDP as any kind of significant measure. It doesn't measure what matters. If you want to measure of what matters, you need to use something else that also includes social progress and environmental well-being and other well-being factors. And so there's a claim that we're living in a system that's seeing progress, but if you actually use a measure like the Genuine Progress Indicator, unfortunately, we've been in a recession for a long time. We have the madness of built-in obsolescence, the idea that you can just take things from the earth, make things and throw them away, and that throwing things away is a good thing because you just buy more stuff. It's got built-in madness and insanity, this system. It applies a force. It's a domination paradigm, and you can't always see it. And you only really see it when you start to oppose it. It will use many things: shaming, humiliation, pressure, financial, litigation, the buy-up of the media, lobbying, the funded AstroTurf organisations that George talked about. You know, and when they do, as Donica's pointed out, talk about us as extremists, they also put our lives at risk. So, you know, even if you're really on a different side of the fence, please think compassionately about the impact you're going to have on us, brother. Thank you. And yet, let's sit here in our righteous anger, but let's not lack love. Because this patriarchal system, it's in all of us. It's an old wound that's been sitting in us for many centuries. It traumatises us, this society, this separation. We get separated from our innate nature, which we women know about, as mothers especially, and beyond. It separates us from our true purpose, which is to live life well and honourably and be good ancestors to those that come after us, to think about the next 7 generations, to take care, to leave things in a better place. You know, there's a very, very beautiful book by Robin Wall Kimmerer called Braiding Sweetgrass I recommend to you. And she's both a First Nation woman and a scientist. And she asked her ecology students, tell me about when humans have a negative impact on the environment. Many hands went up. Tell me about when humans have a positive impact. That's our destiny, to be in a positive relationship, and the Indigenous people show us that that is possible. And it's about being in a system, living in right relationship with the world. It's about gift economics, it's about sharing, it's about cooperation. The separation we feel from our own ability to feel empowered, and the separation from each other. We're living in a system that relies on dividing and conquering. Dividing along lines of race and gender and class and all the rest of it. And the endless stories in the press that are designed to make the rest of folks think that we're some kind of nutters, you know. I especially will not stand and listen to this idea that the environmental movement and working class people are somehow in opposition to each other. That is the biggest load of nonsense. We're wasting £100 billion pounds on HS2. You put that into a green recovery, that creates jobs and so on. And you know, as a coal miner's daughter, the community that I came from was decimated by an agenda to disempower the working class people in this community, in this country, and to set us up against each other. And part of this system is about this idea of scarcity. There's not enough to go around. More for you is less for me. It's not the case. You know, when I see someone having and being and getting what they need, it fills my cup as well. More for you is more for me. This system relies on us feeling powerless. Who's feeling powerless today? When we come together, we're not powerless. The power, as Hannah Arendt, a political theorist, said, lies in the collective. And that's why it's so important to keep us divided. But we have power when we come together. And in that way, I want to call in Trickster. There's an energy that exists in the world that's disruptive, and frankly, Dominic Cummings is a brilliant trickster. I'm not celebrating everything he's done, folks, but Trickster's not on anybody's side, actually. I'm calling in love, and I'm calling in our co-liberation, because and this is some fantastic work that Skeena Rathor's leading in Extinction Rebellion, is to look at the places where we have been separated and what's in us. And folks, let's not give each other a hard time about when we make mistakes. Let's communicate well and with love and with compassion for each other. So I'm actually here to speak a little bit about Money Rebellion, but it's more of a little bit of a teaser because it's going to get more launched next week, and what's happening this week is the Climate and Ecological Emergency Bill. All blessings and love for that process of that bill. It's generating a lot of interest, a lot of momentum. It's part of our movement work. Many people are getting behind it. And obviously, given those that are in power at the minute, we're not exactly expecting it to be voted through today in fast flying colours. So I won't say so much about Money Rebellion, but just that it's clear to me that what we need is systemic change. And this is not change that's based in, it has to be this type of system or that type of system. It's a paradigm shift. And how we do this matters. And it's about non-compliance with a system that's based in domination and control, this political economy. It's focusing on gift economics. So where are we feeling that we have to comply with this system, that we have to pay into it? Why don't we start giving our money where it's most needed? What about some of the famous folks not paying some of the tax that's going to pay for HS2 and giving it to the HS2 protectors instead in an act of public generosity? Maybe we can make donations on behalf of banks to Survival International and other organisations in acts of solidarity, and then ask them to write off our debts because we're making reparations on their behalf. There are many other ideas. There are many other ways that we can run an economic system. And it's not for Extinction Rebellion to say it's against this form of economic system and for that form of economic system. There are many different ideas out there. What we can say is what we want our economy to be for. An economic system that's designed to maximise well-being and minimise harm. It may involve many great businesses. There are businesses, look at Frederick Laloux's work, Teal businesses that do fantastic work based in great purpose. They make profit, they use their profit for purpose. Real genuine purpose of wanting to support people's well-being. There's Project Drawdown, there's donor economics, there's bioregional economics, regenerative economics, circular economics. There's more economic ideas out there than you're going to hear from this building. There's concepts like, let's just sort out our basic needs. Let's just pay for universal basic services, and then we can focus on healing the planet, on healing the harm that's being done. Carbon taxes, tackling tax dodging, ecocide law, many fantastic ideas. So the call for Money Rebellion is about rewiring humanity, resetting our system, rebooting our operating system. Because when you have a system of domination and control, you have to find a way to meet that with a similar force, but it needs to be a force of love. Satyagraha is the phrase that Gandhi used, truth force. And we can use truth force in economic civil disobedience. And this, in my view, is the great challenge of humanity, is how do we meet domination and control without being in domination and control, because frankly we won't win. Because most of us just want to chill out and have a good time and have a dance, right? Hang out with our families, have some good sex and some nice food, listen to some nice music. We don't really want to mess about with everybody who's, trying to have a sleep here and banging the drums and everything. It's all a bit ridiculous, really. We just want to get on with our lives, right? I want to plant trees. I love little birds. I want to do things for the sparrows. That's what I really want to spend my time on, to be honest. Do you know what I mean? And not not here to tell everybody what to think. You know, this idea that we know what to do. I don't know what the answer is. I just know that we need to meet force with beauty, love, and truth. And all the different truths are out there, a pluriversality of truths. And visioning. Hold the vision. Thank you. And so in that way, what the Money Rebellion of Extinction Rebellion is calling for is a global citizens' assembly to rewire humanity, to say, what, for goodness sake, why are we killing ourselves? Why are we creating the 6th mass extinction event? Why are we on potentially, in the IPCC's language, RCP 8.5, you know, which is similar to the Permian mass extinction when 95% of all life died. You know, why are we on these paths potentially? Why are we, you know, the government's own climate change committee has said to prepare for 4 degrees of warming. In 2008, he said probably we can't adapt. Essentially this June, the government's own climate change committee told the government to prepare for the collapse of civilization, as Sir David Attenborough's talked about. How can we be in a state where we're talking about the potential collapse of civilization? We've had a taste of it with coronavirus. A global citizens' assembly to ask these biggest questions that won't be controlled and influenced by vested interests, by big money. But we actually would like alongside it a multi-stakeholder panel. We need all voices, frankly, and with love, including voices that are into free markets and into free, I think it gets very fundamentalist actually, but all ideas need to be tabled. We need to listen to each other. So, thank you for joining us today. I think we're going to have a little bit more samba band in for a while, and the Writers' Rebellion are going to join us soon. Please do your best to maintain social distance, but most of all, to hold the vision, to remember our togetherness, to remember the Shambhala warrior in you, to remember your true purpose. Anybody alive today, really the purpose, I think, is to support and help life to thrive. Remember who you are, folks. Remember that you love each other, and let's have a fucking good time.
Thanks for watching.